for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that.
As a result of the 2016 presidential campaign, American citizens have begun to internalize a concept long debated by professional philosophers, namely whether there can ever be such a thing as objective truth. While it would be tempting to suggest that this shift is temporary, or that it only applies to ideas rather than things in this world, there is every reason to believe that the widespread acceptance of fake news and alternative facts is here to stay, and that things like violent crime data.
The murder rate is the highest it's been in, I guess, from 45 to 47 years.
Or scientific consensus on anthropogenic climate change.
You know what this is? It's a snowball.
Are as open to interpretation as is the rather more slippery idea of whether or not citizens have a right to health care. It ought to be surprising to few, then, that one of the best-known examples of subjectivity is also enjoying newfound acceptance, except that the example revolves around the idea that terrorism can be understood if we're willing to consider the perspective of supporters of the terrorists. In today's political climate, one might expect that few people would be willing to endorse the core message behind the idea that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, and yet that phrase is as popular today as it has ever been.
Moments later, the first bomb explodes.
The reason for its popularity is not that anyone in America endorses terrorism. Rather, it's based on the widespread acceptance of the concept of subjectivity. We believe terrorists are wrong, but their supporters believe they're right. Of course, we're perfectly content to claim that those supporters are wrong in their belief and we are right in ours. And many people use that difference in beliefs to justify others' beliefs, like one that claims a deep civilizational divide between us and them, or one that claims that we ourselves might be seen to promote terroristic violence, but simply don't view it as such.
We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones, and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth.
This notion that where we stand depends on where we sit requires some careful interrogations, in no small part because of the ongoing war on terror, but perhaps more importantly because of what it says about a society that embraces what we here argue is clearly a mistaken viewpoint.
You're looking at live pictures out of Charlottesville, Virginia.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
To put it plainly, we argue that the popularity of a subjective view of terrorism elides the very clear difference between heroism and villainy, in the same way that, for example, subjectivism on questions of right and wrong have always done. We focus not simply on the mistaken notion of subjective understanding of terrorism here, but on the mistaken notion of subjective understandings of heroism and villainy broadly, because we contend that establishing a common, objective understanding of these terms in the public discourse can have profound implications for society as a whole. Given that heroism is ultimately concerned with the values that a society holds dear and wishes to promote, it is crucial to have a clear and concise definition of what it means to act heroically. A review of the emerging contemporary literature on heroes and heroism leads us to assert that a hero is someone who undertakes a risky or sacrificial action, often on the behalf of others, as a result of a deeply held principle. A person's motivations are incredibly important to the determination of heroic action, as it is the hero's conscious and unforced choice to act, even if the hero is unable to fully verbalize the motivations or the experience of agency. While classical heroism might not have focused on helping others and might instead have centered around the hero's personal aggrandizement in a way that sits less well with contemporary audiences, the basic tenets of risk or sacrifice in service of principle have held for heroes across thousands of years in multiple cultures. While we believe that it is crucial to elucidate the definition of heroism, we would be remiss if we failed to note that a critic would contend that the same definition could be made to apply to villainy. Like heroic freedom fighters, villainous terrorists often sacrifice, or at least endanger, their lives to accomplish their goals. They too are willing to make sacrifices in the service of a principle.
Look at our situation. The foreigners kill our people, they insult our religion, burning the Holy Quran and making cartoons of our Prophet Muhammad. If we don't defend Islam, then we are not Muslim.
In this paper, then, we set out the clear distinction between heroes and villains by looking at classical and contemporary examples of heroism and villainy. We argue that the true distinguishing features of the hero is her ability to regard others, friends and enemies alike, as individuals, to act on their behalf rather than solely on her own behalf or on the behalf of her in-group, and to refuse to take a deal that would ease the risk of their action.